It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello, Sapiens, and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is the notable Nate Smith, and today I am joined by the sassy Cindy Plaza. Say hello, Cindy.
Hi, Nate.
Hey, glad to have you back. We also have the judicious Josh and Entner. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a while since I've been on here.
It's been a minute. We're glad to have you back. And finally, we have the scintillating Cynthia McDonald. Cynthia, my queen, how are you today?
I'm doing well, my liege. How are you?
I also am faring thee well this fine morn. This show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and to promoting positive atheism. Today, folks, we are going to talk about a Texas judge blocking PrEP coverage. Awful. Holy cows that can't be culled because reasons. A Montana judge gets it right while his fellow lawmakers get it spectacularly wrong. And finally, a step in the right direction with Christianity becoming a minority religion. As with all our shows, links to today's topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. And a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. So, section the first. Oh, Texas. What are you doing to me here? Cynthia, tell us about the latest awful thing that Texas is doing.
Oh boy, does Texas got its armpit in this one, guys. Let me tell you. So this particular news that comes from NBC, it's basically talking about how the government can't mandate coverage for drugs that prevent HIV infections, is what a Texas federal judge rules. And it was actually published on September 7th, 2022 by Benjamin Ryan and Corky Siemaszko. I believe that's their name. If I did butcher it, I do apologize. So, what is this whole story about? Well, the story comes in Texas specifically, where a district judge named Reed O'Connor ruled that from a lawsuit filed by Jonathan Mitchell, a former Texas solicitor general and a conservative activist, on behalf of Braidwood Management Inc. and other self-described Christian employers and employees, that PrEP, which is a HIV prevention drug, mandated coverage through the ACA, not the Atheist Community of Austin, but the Affordable Care Act, is unconstitutional.
The other ACA.
I had to, right. The other ACA, yes, I had to make that distinction. So he ruled that certain drugs that prevent HIV medication, or HIV infections rather, violate the religious beliefs of a Christian owned company. So that's basically the gist of it. You know, people who want this particular drug in Texas, if the company says that they don't want to cover it for religious reasons, then they don't have to. And there you go. So I think that we should go ahead and just start having a discussion about it. What you guys think about this thing?
This seems like a little bit of like, I don't understand this idea that the guy, you have to check your employment for whoever's in charge and see what religion they line up with to see what kind of medication you can be getting with your
Yeah.
health care. It's like so far removed from the way healthcare should act. It's already a mess that healthcare is associated with your job, but now you got to check who's in charge in order to make your choices on. And it's already hard enough getting a job as it is. Healthcare should be something that's between the patient and the doctor. Until Jesus is coming into your examination room and healing you of whatever you have, he really has no place making decisions about anybody's health. It's very ridiculous. It's definitely just something, it's bigotry. That's all that it is. And I don't understand how healthcare can get around bigotry because somebody says, Jesus told me this is bad.
Yeah, like I exactly agree. Like, what if your boss was a Jehovah's Witness and you needed a blood transfusion and they're like, oh no, we don't believe in that, so you're out of luck. Or what if your boss was a Muslim and forbade BLTs in the country in the company lunchroom? Like, would these Christian nationalists feel the same? Of course not. Let's not fool ourselves. And let's not fool ourselves either about the fact that Muslims banning BLTs, they would if they could. It's this whole thing reminds me of the Abigail Adams quote that all men would be tyrants if they could, but in this case, we're substituting the word faith for men. I don't know. What do you think, What do you think, Cindy?
Yeah, I think this is clearly targeting LGBTQ people. There's no other purpose for this law. There is a war right now against LGBTQ people in the Anglo-Saxon countries, and one of the major reasons, from what I can see, is that the right has no political platform anymore. They don't stand for anything. They only oppose things they don't like, and so for that they target minorities all the time. We see this law targeting gay people. We see other laws targeting trans kids, sending parents because they take care of their kids. Texas is, I I hate to say it, but it's a shithole country right now. There's no other word. There's no other word for that. I mean,
Wow.
how insecure and petty and coward you have to be to attack minority people to stay in power.
Yeah,
I
I like what you said about they don't stand for anything, they just oppose things at this point. Go ahead, Cynthia.
I just want to just bring a little bit more context concerning this particular story. So the lawsuit the Jonathan Mitchell brought actually challenged the provision that required for employers to actually cover these particular drugs, specifically Truvada and Descovy. Those are the ones that are actually FDA approved to actually prevent HIV, and they work. That's the great thing about it, is that they actually work. So if you really just think about that, HIV/AIDS is still a global epidemic. You still have millions of people. I believe the last time I checked AIDS.gov, you still have about 36.7 million people worldwide that are currently living with HIV. And you had about 35 million that has died since 1981, when we actually coined the term acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So when they actually came up with a drug that could prevent the transmission of HIV from one person to another, that was like a game changer, because now it's basically a way for you to use an additional prophylactic, or in a form of an actual medication. And the thing about it is that even though that mostly men are on this particular drug. It or cisgender men who happen, and most of them may be gay or bisexual, but it's not limited to just men. You know, you have trans people who take it, and women, cisgender women, can take it too. Matter of fact, one of the things that I was advocating for is to really have more exposure, specifically for cisgender women, to get on PrEP as well, because like especially like in the African American community, one of the highest infection rates for HIV are amongst Black women. So, you know, knowing that this particular drug can definitely assist in making sure that the people who are on it are not going to get HIV is a game changer. And I don't completely understand what Bible verse that a Christian company is going to be using to not cover a drug that can possibly save people's lives. I last time I checked, Jesus went around healing people that were sick. You know, I mean, like, I personally don't want to have someone spit in dirt and then make it in mud and stick it on my eyes so I can see. But still, you know, seeing like that, Jesus was an advocate for healthcare. So why wouldn't, you know, this particular person, you know, be a like, you know, Jonathan Mitchell and of his ilk, not want to be able to have these drugs covered. And the crazy thing about it is that you know, PrEP and HIV medications like antiretroviral treatments and retrovirus treatments rather are very expensive without insurance. Like even like your normal ART could be for a 30-day supply without insurance or any type of like patient assistance program could be over $3,000 easily, you know. And there are different programs that are sponsored, you know, at the federal level for people to be able to get like PrEP and also and also like HIV treatment medication with little to no cost. But those programs are state ran. So if you have a judge in Texas that are saying this, there is an actual additional barrier that's going to be placed in front of being able to get this particular drug, and there's no reason for it whatsoever.
Yeah, in my research, I saw that Truvada was like nearly $2,000 a month without insurance for people. It did mention that there was like over-the-counter alternatives for it, but you shouldn't have to go for over-the-counter. They should be covering across the board for something like this. This definitely does seem to be something like this seems to like anything from the LGBTQ community seems to be on attack right now, and it's like they don't need to justify it because their base, the base that attacks them, they respond to these kinds of attacks. And then, but like this goes beyond just their employment, because if people have a hard time getting these drugs, it can like open up into the community beyond just the people that are employed. Other people can come in contact with these people, and this drug has as close to 100% as you can possibly get with a drug at stopping HIV. It said 99% rate for stopping it for men and 90% rate for stopping it with women. That's an incredible rate with drugs. Like this was like,
those are good numbers.
Yeah, this was horrifying in the 80s. Like everybody looked upon it as a death sentence, and now we have something that's getting it under control. And it seems like they're trying to like use it, bring it back to the 80s so that they can wipe out a minority that they don't like.
Yeah,
it's like this religious freedom has become just a trash in which you can throw anything you don't like. As soon as you want to prevent something that makes you uncomfortable, you say it's my religious feelings are hurt by this, and so it goes under my protection, and so I can just get rid of it thanks to the law, and the law allows it, and that's that's a loophole the US needs to take care of right now, like
Yeah.
50 years ago right now.
Yeah, your discomfort does not outweigh my human rights. Absolutely.
Right. I totally agree with
Yeah,
that. That
Cynthia.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with you, Cindy. I know that one of the things that Biden wanted to do was try to find ways to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, especially to close any type of loopholes specifically that could prevent employers from being able to help cover these types of drugs, especially when uh, HIV, AIDS, or any of those things, that's not a gay disease. It's just a disease, and anybody can get it. And there's
Yeah.
many ways that a person can acquire HIV, and it's not just through sex. So, matter of fact, the person that kind of was like even the game changer in of itself to start getting government research money involved with HIV was Ryan White, because he got it through a blood transfusion, and he was a child when it happened. So, and matter of fact, I think I mentioned this on one of my on one of the previous programs that I have a patient right now who has HIV, but they got it through a blood transfusion in 2019 because of negligence of the hospital that they
Wow.
were getting treated for anemia. So it's not something that even though it's not as commonplace now that people can get it through blood transfusions, but it's not completely impossible. And I do appreciate this particular quote, because one of the things that I also read in the article is that this Judge O'Connor person happens to be like the go-to judge that the conservatives seek in order for them to challenge
Yup.
Obamacare provisions. Like, he's the one that, ruled with measures that aimed against protecting transgender students. Also, he was trying to thwart enforcing COVID vaccine mandates, and he's also known to being the architect behind the lawsuits that would I believe it says like lawsuits against suspecting people who were helping people with uteruses if they wanted to go ahead and get an abortion. Like, he was the one who deputized people in order for you to go ahead and sue
To
because you
SB8.
suspect them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you suspect them for
Right.
actually getting help to get an abortion, so I can sue you up to $10,000, which is, oh my gosh, I can. There's a string of four-letter words that just want to come out of me right now. But we're just in the first segment, so I'm just going to go ahead and save that for later. But one of the things that I did like that was being said in this particular article is that increasing PrEP access in the United States has been a key public health goal, and the requirement that private insurers provide PrEP with no cost sharing was a key way in which access has been promoted. And this was said by Jennifer Cates, who's the director of global health and HIV policy at the Kaiser Family Foundation. And she continued to say, however, this latest ruling would introduce a barrier that would result in less access, as fewer individuals would be able to afford this critical invention. And I don't want to necessarily sound like an alarmist, but I'm going to sound like an alarmist that this can also introduce um, other ways to enforce or take away different enforcements when it comes to healthcare, because like, who's to say that the next ruling would be, and you don't have to cover HIV medications too, or you don't have to cover. I mean, hell, they could say and you don't have to cover diabetes medication. You don't have to cover, like blood pressure medication. I mean, like anything. Like if you want to say that, hey, I'm
anything you don't personally agree with,
you can say you don't have to cover it.
No,
and
exactly.
And unfortunately, because of stuff like this, people will die.
You're not being an alarmist, because Clarence Thomas wrote in the Roe decision that the court should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. So we're talking about gay marriage. We're talking about access to contraception. We've got a Supreme Court justice literally calling for candidate cases to bring before the Supreme Court so they can codify this Christian nationalist movement while they've got the purse strings. That's exactly what this is. This guy knows what he's doing is wrong, but he's just hoping that this will be appealed up to the Supreme Court. He's hoping that this is going to go up there, and that he can finally, he can finally get this one. He can deny services. We've already done this, like we've already had this battle, but now these guys know that they've got a stacked Supreme Court, and so they're trying to send these obviously unconstitutional cases to the Supreme Court so that they can win this battle while they've got the majority. You're totally right, Cynthia. This is the time for alarmism.
On the alarm.
Did any of you guys have any thoughts before we move? I'd also just like to say there is almost an 85% chance that this man has a picture of Ronald Reagan in his study.
I would not take you 90, up on that bet. Yeah, this seems to be right now. We're at that point where they're in power, but they're not going with what the people want. I know the majority of the comments that I looked up videos on this and stuff. Every comment about this is it's a horrible thing that's happening. It's against the will of the people. You can even go on left, right. Everybody's angry about this, but it's the highly religious Christian nationalists that seem to be pushing all these agendas that majority of the people don't want, but they have the power right now.
Yeah, what bothers me the most and truly angers me is the cynicism here. I don't like gays, or I'll make everything I can to get rid of them all, and it doesn't matter if I do a little bit of side casualties with people who are not gay but will die anyway. That's this level of cynicism is just amazing.
Yeah. And I just want to say that This is just another example of, legislating with Christo-fascist law that's rooted in bigotry. And it's going to be another example coming very, very soon. You just wait. That's why we're here. And I just wanted to say that these are the same people who call themselves pro-life. They're not pro-life. You may be anti-gay, you may be anti-trans, you may be anti-women, but you're not pro-life. And because I just don't understand, why would you keep away a possible life saving drug that can help millions of people?
But my final thought would be that I recently read a statistic that there are more straight people currently being infected by HIV than are LGBTQ plus people. So, if your goal is to expose these people and deny LGBTQ people access to healthcare, like, you guys are the problem at this point, right? Like, we've actually recognized the problem because we were ignored during the whole of the 1980s. And so we've taken steps to gradually ameliorate this condition. It's the straight people that are being infected now. So you're kind of traitors to your own cause at this point. But final thoughts before we move on, folks.
Just bigotry seems to care more about stereotypes and actual facts on this.
Yep.
Amen.
Exactly. I agree.
As they do. As they do. All right. So we shall move on. Before we do, I want to thank our veteran and new viewers for getting us over 11,000 subscribers. So if you're watching us now, if you haven't subscribed yet, click that button, ring the bell so that you're notified when we come on. But let's be honest, you're probably watching us between Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. But if you like, share the channel with your friends, your family, your coworkers that don't really like you. Trust me, this can only make things worse. And let's get the word out there so we can start helping out with some fundraisers. Also, did you know that the Atheist Community of Austin has other YouTube channels? Well, you should be. Check out the Atheist Experience Network. It's a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes of the nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, all of our other ACA shows, and don't miss a single episode. We're going to move on to segment 2. Holy cow, Josh. What have you got for us today, sir?
Well, anything I say in a cow kind of pun is going to fall flat after you come in with holy cow. But this is a good article because we constantly get accused of only picking on like Christians on all these shows. And now we got something that seems to be more focused on the Hindu religion. We got an article, When Sick Cows Can't Be Culled, India's Battle with Brucellosis by Sandy Org. And I had to watch a bunch of videos to see how to pronounce Brucellosis. And I'm hoping that I did it right because I can't remember how I heard it earlier today. But brucellosis is a highly contagious and chronic disease caused by a bacteria that affects mainly livestock, sheep, goats, and cattle, which is the important one in this article. It can also be transmitted to humans. The infections cause late-term abortions, poor fertility, I struggled on that word, and reduced milk production. The disease can cause a loss of billions of dollars across India, and they're only kind of doing like half measures with this thing. Because they think cows are sacred in the Hindu religion, they're not going to cull the cows like they've done across the world with this problem, and other spots of the world. It's not really even a problem. It's like a rare thing that pops up here and there, but in most parts of the world, they'll give them the vaccine, test the cow to see if they actually have come down with it, and if they have come down with it, they cull them or slaughter them, whatever version you want to say. They kill the cow, and over there they do the vaccine. So I'm going to give them like a C for effort, and like at least they're trying something based around science. They're not completely devoid of it. But then when they find a test that the cows are actually infected, they will try to we'll move those cows over to another part of the ranch or something like that, trying to isolate them with a chronic disease that is not going to go away. And most of the time, it doesn't seem like they have the conditions to do this. It's like they want to make it happen, but they can't get it to happen because they don't have the resources to like separate every single cow that comes down with it. Anybody else?
How could you? Yeah. I mean, if you can't cull them, then how could you possibly have a reasonable solution other than mass quarantine in a country that's doesn't have enough resources for its human population, let alone its bovine population? But Cindy, what did you have for us on this?
Yeah, this right there is the cost of superstition.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
India is very, very religious and superstitious country. But that's just one example. I'm really tired of seeing all these examples we see throughout history where humanity had to tiptoe around those crazy beliefs because, we don't want to make those people feel wrong or stupid or anything like that. So we're going to try and walk around and find workarounds to solve this problem. When we know what the solution is, we need to cull these cows. Go to a fucking science class already. I mean, what about cows is sacred? What this very idea why cows and not I don't know any other animal.
It's the cheese.
It makes no sense. we are facing a world-shattering crisis with climate change, and instead of trying to find meaningful solutions, we have to waste our time with those nonsensical beliefs. It's about time we teach critical thinking in every single school, in every single country in the planet. It's like I said earlier, it's 50 years ago time to do it.
Agreed.
I would
Cynthia,
say,
what did you have for us?
I was going to say 500 years, but who's counting? But anywho, yeah, these sacred cows, boy, I tell you, no more. And the crazy thing about it is like when I read this article, like I felt mixed, and the reason being is, I like animals, you know. One of my highlights is like, especially in the spring and summer when I would do our annual trek to the south with me and my dad. We would drive through Illinois and to Tennessee, and like a lot of times we would see farms on the way, and you would see the cows and sometimes horses and other different farm animals, and I even remember that my mom told a story about a cousin of ours who was from Jamaica who's never seen like a cow per se, like here, and call the cow a big dog. But we laughed at him. Yes, we did. But regardless of that, you don't necessarily want to, just like say, okay, let's just like kill animals in order to like save the population. But in this particular case, like that's the only way that they're going to be able to get this particular infection under control. I mean, because like one of the things that they mentioned about the vaccine that they want to use is that it's a very crude vaccine. They can only do it to calves,
Right.
or to cows who've never had who are not pregnant, because if they give it to a pregnant cow, the cow will abort the calf. And also the way that they are practicing getting it out now, because like the vaccine would, according to the article, said that based on the models that they have ran, that any program that focuses mainly on vaccination would take 10 to 20 years to decrease the prevalency of the disease down to only 2 to 3%. So there still may have a very insignificant change vaccinating the cows, and the reason being is because like they're not considering to call the infected ones. And then even like Josh, I know that you mentioned about trying to quarantine the cows. You were absolutely right when you came to space. There is no space. Like most of the people who actually have cows,
it's India. Yeah,
it's India, right? It's India. There is no space, and often if you're trying to quarantine like cows who happen to be sick, farmers have to foot the bill for that, and the money in order to foot the bill to actually quarantine your cows properly is more than likely is not existent, and nor is like the space to actually quarantine the cows. So the answer would make sense in order for them not to necessarily have this disease to spread as prevalent as it does, is to kill or cull the cows that are affected. But because the cow is considered holy, sacred, holy cow, Batman is I was trying to do my best Harry Carey. I feel like my Chicago is like down the drain right now.
Harry,
but oh, let me tell you.
Would you eat the moon?
Okay, make that mid roll. Me and Nate trying to do Harry Carey, but regardless of that,
would you eat the moon if it was made of cheese? It's a simple question, Doctor. I'm sorry, Cynthia.
It is also oh, you're fine. But it's also a simple answer to cull these cows. But Cindy, you're spot on when you say why cows? Why not an octopus? Why not a cat?
Yeah.
Which we already covered, our alien species. Why not a dog? I got a dog. Yeah, I
Hey,
mean, like, why not any
I
of
would
those
just like
things?
to I would just like to congratulate Cynthia, knowing that she's a vegan. She's literally spoken about animals raised for slaughter for the last 4 minutes without saying the word vegan. Like, wow. Very good. You are the least insufferable vegan I have ever met. Congratulations.
Well, I'm more
That
of a
is amazing.
pescatarian.
And like,
I'm more of a pescatarian plant-based person. So like,
okay,
I will
fair.
eat fish, but I'm mostly plant-based.
But
But
fish
yeah,
are
I mean, but the
sacred.
thing about it is that
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah, thank you. I mean, but the thing about it is that when it comes to any of these things, because I didn't become that way because of like, I guess, like moral implications for animals. I did that because my health was like going crazy. But but in this particular case, read a science book, people. India, I need you to rethink your belief system, because it's kind of fucking you up. Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, the thing that gets me, it's like, if you revere the cow, and I'm sympathetic because easily one of the most delicious animals, right? But if you revere the cow, why would you not want to minimize the animal's suffering? Like, the symptoms list for this thing is pretty freaking awful. And I didn't see anything about post-infection care other than just the mass quarantine that nobody can afford that we've been talking about, which also doesn't seem to be working. So it's like the humane and the sacred are at odds here. It doesn't make any sense. And I was looking at the comments from the World Health Organization, that they're of the opinion that brucellosis, maybe I'm saying that wrong. Sorry, we're all going to butcher this word, folks. We're sorry. Brucellosis is one of the most overlooked zoonotic diseases. So, like, does your strategy of collecting infected livestock into massive caches across a country that can't afford it, does that not seem like a bad idea? Like, I'm not sure if I've stumbled into the start of a Plague Inc. game, or maybe a sequel to The Last of Us, but this seems like the start of an apocalypse video game. If any of y'all are gamers, you're going to get that, and if you're not, you're going to be completely lost. But like, this is literally at least 7 bad Amazon Prime movies that I've seen already. Josh, I know you're a film buff too, so what do you have to say?
I think that going with the vaccine as the only way of fighting it makes zero sense, especially when they talked in the article about the conditions that the vaccine had to be kept in order to be viable. And it doesn't seem like most of the ranchers in India have the conditions where they can get the vaccine to them while it would still be in working order, because it needs to be kept in extremely cold conditions. And that's not happening
right
for a
in
lot of
India.
areas. Yeah. Like that's not happening. So like, they're getting them vaccinated, but they're getting them vaccinated poorly. I don't like that 10 to 20 years almost seems extremely optimistic of a number to get it down to 2 to 3%, because they're inoculating them poorly. And they also have to be fed like a certain type of feed in order to get the right nutrients that go along with this vaccine. And again, they can't afford that kind of feed. They talked about in the article how most of the calves are getting the feed from the full adult cows, and that doesn't have what they need to grow and cultivate the medicine from this vaccine. So it's almost like they're continually shooting themselves in the foot. I had given them a C, and then thinking back on this, on the way their vaccines are going to come to them, I'm bringing them down to a D. They're not completely failing because there's a little bit of something there, but that effort isn't as good as it could be. And yeah, plus, even if they get the vaccine, or even if they don't get the vaccine in time, they're gonna get they're worried about abortions, late-term abortions from the vaccine. But if they get the disease, they also end up giving abortions. So it's like every single thing that they're doing is shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and to come back on Nate's point, I like to remember that the more you leave space for a disease, the more chances it has to mutate. And so
right.
this issue over there is COVID V2. I mean, you said, Nate, that it's a zoonotic disease, which means it can transfer to humans. But before that, it can mutate 1,000 times and become much worse at the same time for the cows themselves, and maybe mutate in a fashion that the vaccine doesn't work anymore in India, and then in the cows in the rest of the planet, but also jump to humans and COVID.
You could almost call it the Cowvid pandemic. I'm sorry,
It's the
Cynthia.
first
Go
funny
ahead.
thing I've heard about COVID since it started.
Yeah, that's a
that's
bad pun.
That joke of the day. Thanks, Nate.
That was a good pun about a sad subject. Okay, let's be accurate here.
You totally dad joked. I just want to put that out there. But I think that one of the other things that
I'm here all week, folks. Don't try the veal.
More pun intended. But another thing that the article also pointed out, especially when it came to, I'm trying to be serious. I really am. I mean, like Nate.
Okay,
Nate
I'm sorry.
Nate
I'll stop cracking dad jokes. I promise.
The conductor has derailed us.
Totally
It's okay. But no.
You're supposed to be the conductor, Cynthia.
Well, I mean,
don't you put that on me?
Well, the tech stuff. But anyway. But in all seriousness, like one of the things that the article did point out is that, in order for them to even give the gracious number of down to 2 to 3% when it comes to administering this vaccine, is that the farmer has to do it. Can you, and I know that there's not much schooling or, that has to be involved as far as like administering the vaccine. But there's a thing called giving too much. There's a thing called giving too little. There's even a thing called making sure that it's not that if how they're administering it can possibly even cause more damage, especially if they're using like a needle. It's not necessarily just in the feed itself. So we can just imagine that if you have like an ill-prepared farmer to try to treat their cows per se with this particular disease, or even just trying to prevent it from the other ones, I can just imagine like more disastrous things that could possibly happen trying to even give the vaccine in the first place. And yeah, I agree with you, Cindy, when it comes to mutations. Like, what mutation are we on right now for COVID? A B13, says me variant right now. And the only reason why we have so many daggum variants is because we were having whack-a-moles going out there saying don't get vaccinated in the first place, and coming up with some other crazy inferences about what vaccines can do to you, even though like if COVID goes crazy, it can kill you. So this is something that it should be a concern, specifically in India, when it comes to infections, when it comes to even trying to administer the vaccine in the first place. And again, I just have to say, and this will be my final thought, that this is where, like Cindy said, it talks about like, reintroducing critical thinking and reason. Because like, even if you want to have your pantheon of gods that you believe in, I think that it has to be balanced, or should be balanced, with what makes sense, especially in your particular situation that you're in right now. And this is not the first story that I have read about how like the cow population is causing major issues in India right now. So this is just one instance, and the reason being is because of this holy cow thing. So I don't know. Get it together, India. That's all I got to say.
If only they had watched more episodes of The Price is Right, they would have known to have their cows spayed or neutered.
Boom ching.
Josh, did you have a final thought before we go? I'm sorry, I won't stop. I can't stop making dad jokes, and I won't do it. Josh, final thoughts.
It just seems weird to me, like the cows fucking suffering. They don't have the means to take care of them. Most religions would say that the way to do it is to take care of them, is to take care of them like a mafia type way. And it like if they, I'm almost positive if they saw like a Moses suffering or something like that, Christians would probably like, hey, let's take him off the ventilator right now. Let's get rid of Moses. And they could do that for their cows too. It just doesn't make any kind of sense to me.
Well, amen to that. Well, I think we're going to move on from the COVID-19 onto what you may have missed if you haven't been watching the other shows that the atheist community of Austin produces. We're going to give you a brief sneak peek at what happened this past week.
Essentially, a bunch of white, cis, hetero dudes, most of them Christian evangelicals, planted their ideological and religious flags inside the uteruses of 2 million Oklahoma women.
But I also don't want to like support or encourage anyone else to help Matt Walsh profit off of this thing. If you feel like hate watching it and you like to sail the 7 seas, then that might be up your alley, if you catch my drift. Yar.
And speaking on this, Multi mentioned it was an at-conception abortion ban. You wouldn't see these men proposing a pre-conception abortion ban, because a pre-conception abortion ban would ban men from masturbating to climax.
And I don't have to constantly be shamed of my life and think that there's a God watching me masturbate. And I mean, that's a small example. But
depends on how you feel about that.
Like, if you're God, what do you plan to do? You're in Kentucky, it says. Are you going to you have a big plan? I mean, the end of the world coming, what's the next step for you / God?
All right, and we are back. So, folks, I have exciting news. This holiday season, the hosts of your favorite ACA shows are going to be going head-to-head in a team contest that will have you in stitches, but we need help from our community. So, we're going to ask you to visit tiny.cc/ACA Holiday Survey 2022. Go to that link. Answer as many questions as you can. I'm doing a terrible job with my pointy fingers. Answer as many questions as you can and be a part of the mayhem coming up. We need your participation. So as a special reward for helping out, we're going to be selecting some respondents at random, and we are going to be sending out a special gift. That's right. Y'all are going to get some special ACA swag. So click that link and get in on the action, and be sure to tune in and watch the hosts of your favorite ACA shows duke it out this coming December. Also, on September the 25th, if you are in Austin, if you can make plans to be in Austin, if you can astrally project yourself to be in Austin, consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Talk Heathen at 1 p.m. and the Atheist Experience at 4:30 p.m. There's a little show called The Nonprofits that airs between those. Maybe catch that too. Doors open at noon. Parking is wherever you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. And if you can't make it there this month, we're going to continue to broadcast from the library on the last Sunday of every single month. So keep watching the show on the website. It's atheist-community.org. For news and information, we're going to be expanding our in-studio offerings in the near future, and we are going to move into the third segment, also known as segment number 3, or segment the third in Old English, with a Montana judge that Cindy is going to tell us about. Cindy, what is going on in Montana?
So this is an article from an MSN, and it talks about a legal battle in Montana between a judge, District Court Judge Michael Moses, and the conservative state legislature. So far, the judge made a ruling, and the state legislature said, "Yeah, we're going to ignore that and do things our way." They are trying to prevent trans people from changing their gender on their birth certificate. So it's been going on for a while with appeals, with denial, and etc., etc. And this is another battlefield in the war I talked about earlier, the war on LGBTQ people. Trans people have been targeted on all sides, whether it's medical, legal, sports, everything. And having the birth certificate changed is vital for trans people, because if you want to be able to live as your preferred gender, you need those IDs changed. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about how it happened to me, but in the meantime, it seems that Montana's elected legislature wants trans people to stay in pain for their entire life. And it's another story after the first segment. It's basically the same, rinse and repeat, and it's getting unnerving. So guys, what do you think?
This seems
unnerving
to be
is one way to put it.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead, Josh.
Like fucking terrible bigotry, yeah, all that kind of crap. This seems to be like the governor Greg Giforti. I don't need to say his name, right? He doesn't matter. I don't respect him because of this crap. Is created the rule to block these certificates through that reversing a rule from I think it was 2021 to make it more difficult. And then we got Judge Michael Moses is actually standing up against this kind of bigotry. And I think that's what we need to take from this a little bit, because yes, this sounds fucking terrible what's going on there, that we see so many people in government taking advantage of their power and using it. And there seems to be a side that seems to be saying going after trans people is the only stance that they have to go on right now. Yeah, I'm seeing it all over the place. It almost seems to be that they want to be triggering people instead of making any actual policies, because if they trigger people, which is a word that they use sarcastically, but could actually have meaning for people that are actually triggered, they get onto the news and they get talked about and they get to get their face out there for everybody. It's not about policies anymore. But this Judge Michael Moses is going up against that, and this is kind of what we need to be aspiring for, because right now we're seeing it all over the country where bigots are taking control of things, and we got to be doing what Michael Moses is and finding ways that we can help the people that are getting oppressed the most in this country. So I applaud that there are people doing something about this. I want to see more people doing this kind of stuff, because if unjust laws, and they were vague, stupid laws, they were like, they need to have some kind of surgery done in order to get the birth certificate, when we already know that not every single trans person gets a surgery. Not everybody desires a surgery. So that's a completely useless reason to not give them it. Or they'll say like a clerical error, which anybody can make up a clerical error if they want, but it doesn't matter. Clerical errors have nothing to do with people, and what people are is what they tell you they are. So it's a ridiculous thing. I'm happy to see somebody's fighting against it. I'm hoping other people follow his example and do something like it in the states that are pushing bullshit.
Agreed.
Cynthia.
I even want to point out specifically about this ruling that Judge Michael Moses made, is that he made it twice. He was first he made it twice, because in 2017 they wanted to introduce a rule to make it harder for transgender people to be able to change their markers on their birth certificates. However, he ruled against it because he said that I believe that he was saying that the rules that they had in place were they were very nebulous. They weren't very clear, especially when you were talking about you have to have a surgical procedure. It never said what surgical procedure. I mean, because even as you pointed out, Josh, that not every trans person actually gets surgery, or not every trans person gets a sexual reassignment surgery, put it that way, right? You may have some if it's a trans woman, they may go ahead and get like, feminization surgery for their face, maybe a breast augmentation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they go all the way. And even if they happen to do anything in the in lieu of the sexual organs, that has levels too, right? And so the rule that they actually came up with to say that you had to have a surgical procedure was so nebulous, so murky, it made no sense. And even they couldn't even spell out what exactly does that mean. So Moses was like, no, we're not doing that. And then when they tried to push it, right, the Montana lawmakers in 2021, the ACLU had to come back and say, hey, could you please tell them again what you told them in 2017 that they could not do, that they're trying to do again? And he was like, sure. Again, right. We're going to put a block on this particular rule because it is murky, it is nebulous, it is not clear. And until you actually have like a clearer rule of exactly how this is supposed to go, we're going to have to block it. And then, but the crazy thing about it is that the lawmakers ended up saying no. And the crazy thing,
that's not good lawyer talk.
The crazy thing about all of that, yeah, that's exactly what they said. They said no. But that is lawyer talk. That is very legal. I looked it up. I Googled it, obviously. So, but the crazy thing about it is that I love how in American politics, specifically on the right, we get to cherry pick what we will and will not do. What do I mean by that? So we already know that there are exorbitant amounts of federal judges that have been stacked since like Trump's been in office that lean conservatively, right? And so there was a complaint specifically about Judge Moses that, they should not listen to him because he was appointed by a Democrat. So that's one issue, right? I know, right? and then like the lawmakers, even though like in the judiciary branch, that is supposedly the branch that interprets the law and what they say goes. And then the lawmakers is like, no, we're just going to completely just like gloss over you. I mean, even when you try to have the president say, when Roe v. Wade came down, that we want to vote on a bill to codify Roe v. Wade, they still had to get the buy-in of the majority of the lawmakers, not only just in the House of Representatives, but also in the Senate, in order for that to pass. It didn't. So they still have to go by the rule of law that the Supreme Court came in. It works like that in lower courts too. So these Montana lawmakers, along with their Department of Health, is so out of pocket. I know that corporal punishment should not be a thing, but I kind of sometimes wish it could be. I personally wish that
they need a spanking.
You need a spanking, or take that gavel and just go smack up right across their face. Just say like, you will do what I say to do because I'm the judge. Here come the judge. Here come the judge. Looking face. All right.
You know why they're bringing this. Yeah, you know why they're bringing this back up. This is like what we were talking about in an earlier segment, is that they're trying to bring these candidate cases up for the Supreme Court because they know that fucking raper face, Handmaid's Tale, whitest black guy ever, and neocon sleeper agent, they're going to gleefully rubber stamp anything that gets the DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour. Like, they've issued the call, and now these conservative legislatures are trying to rehash this already settled law in a vain attempt to seize power before they become completely irrelevant. Mm-hmm. That's what I think we're trying to get at here. But Cindy, you have some pretty personal experience with trying to deal with this kind of shit in your own country. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. I'll try to stay brief. I'm French and I live in Belgium, so my story is a little bit more complicated than it should have been. But so basically, you have two steps. One is the gender, and the other one is the first name. Two different steps you can take in parallel if you want. And so for the gender, I had to send a letter to the court of the city I was born in, in France, which is very practical, because now I'm in Belgium. So then they send me another letter to tell me, okay, you can come on that day. You will have an audition, and we'll decide if you can or not. Unfortunately, I never received that letter. So
wait, are these like physical letters, like snail mail? Like, wow.
Yes,
That never got. That you never got, right?
That I never got. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Which is even worse. I only received the letter saying, "Hey, you didn't show up, so we're closing your case." So I
that
sent
letter shows up.
Yes. So I sent another letter and said, "Please don't. I didn't receive your letter. Blah blah blah." And so I finally show up and I explain why I want to change my gender, and in front of judges, which is very it's very weird because you have all those people in front of you and people in the back waiting for their turn to speak. It's the whole process took 2 years just for the gender change on my ID card. Then there's the first name, which was a little bit faster. It took let's say 8 to 10 months. But in Belgium, the entire process takes 3 months. Like you go to the city hall, you say, okay, I don't feel comfortable with my gender. You sign a pre-written paper. They make some kind of checkings, like you're not trying to change your identity to avoid justice, or those kind of things. And 3 months later, you sign the same paper. Yes, I do, and then you change your ID. That's all. And so that's how it should be everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
There is no logical reason to go to a judge to say, okay, I need to change my gender, or I need to change my first name, or to change my last name, because it's the same process in France. If you want to change your last name, you have to go to a judge, and then it's printed in the official journal, which is a documentation that comes every week and says what laws has been passed in the last week. So if you change your name in France, it's printed officially on a record that everyone can see, and that's just ridiculous.
Wow. This whole thing, it is sort of reassuring and also sort of worrying, but the thing that gives me hope is that there is still, this sort of one man that can change history kind of narrative here. And this whole narrative with this story made me think of Mr. Frank Murphy. I'm sorry, Josh, I'm stealing him from you. But Frank Murphy was he was one man. He was a judge. He's a World War I veteran. He was the mayor of Detroit during the Depression. He was the governor of Michigan, the attorney general, later appointed Supreme Court justice. He argued against interring Japanese Americans during World War II. Very unpopular position. Fought for justice for a black doctor who was, by the way, named Dr. Sweet, who repelled a KKK mob against supreme pushback, right? This is a little known piece of American history, but if you're not familiar with it, folks, I encourage you, go look up the story of Frank Murphy. This guy was a fucking badass, and he was not afraid to speak truth to power. This guy, this Judge Moses, is that guy, right? One person can stand up and affect change in history, but my question to you guys before we wrap up this this segment is: do you think this is still possible in today's America? Like, can one champion make a difference? I'm skeptical. Josh, what do you think?
I mean, on that, I'd say there's
Cindy's
always
saying no.
possibilities. You're always going to have people that can like galvanize people behind them. But you need that one. You do need a figure. I'm hoping this is one figure that starts to galvanize people behind him, gets voices heard. I'm not a optimist,
yes,
but I want this to happen.
Absolutely. Cynthia, did you have any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, to answer your question, that I don't believe one person can, but I do believe a critical mass can. And it doesn't have to be everybody, but one person can be the catalyst, because that could be a domino effect in order for more people to actually get on board and say, no, this is wrong. We should be doing better in this space, and let us all get together to make a change. I'm not going to sing that song, but if we definitely galvanize ourselves behind the, the theory of creating a critical mass behind behind an issue, I do believe it can change for the better.
Well, Jason's going to be very glad that you didn't break out into Man in the Mirror in the middle of this episode of the Nonprofits. But,
we don't have the rights to that.
Yeah, I think.
Nah.
No, we don't have the rights to Michael Jackson's songs. It may surprise you to learn, but yeah, it's not in the budget for Nonprofits. But we are going to move on with this. We're going to move on from this perhaps shuffle moonwalk in the right direction. Perhaps we could go that.
We could, but we got an announcement to make first.
We do. Before we see Cynthia attempt the moonwalk, we're going to let you folks know that you can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. You can click the join button below the video. It'll give you access to special chat emojis. And soon we're going to have one of Cynthia in a red leather jacket doing the moonwalk. Also, we have a brand new store. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get your favorite items. We got t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, sexy pillows that I modeled on secular sexuality last Thursday. You can also check new items, beanies and phone cases and tote bags, and all ACA shows have unique limited edition items every month. We swap out. We've got a rotation of neat stuff, and we actually take suggestions. So if you've got some ideas, feel free to hit us up, tv@atheist-community.org. But check out our store for Nonprofits merch and also merch from all the other shows. We're going to move into the final segment. And I'm going to introduce this one with this is not a moonwalk in the right direction. This is perhaps a giant leap in the right direction, even though it probably won't take place until I'm very nearly dead and gone.
And you don't want a song for this? I'm so sorry. I switched my glasses and everything.
I didn't know we were going to do the song for this, but you know what? If you want to sing us. Go ahead, Cynthia. Give us a stepping in the right direction.
Well, we can just step in the right direction. Step in the right direction, yeah. Step in the right direction. We'll step in the right direction, yeah. Take it away, Nate.
Bam! That's as much rhythm as a white guy can conjure right now. But segment number 4. We have a story about Christianity becoming a minority religion in the United States. Wow. So we've got a couple of articles here. We've got one from Only Sky Media, I think it's called. Yeah, Only Sky Media, which to me sounds more like a subscription-based porn site for clouds. But anyway, Only Sky Media. And then we've got a link to the actual Pew study showing that by 2070, they are projecting Christians will be a minority in the United States. So again, by the time I'm very likely dead, my neighbor might stop talking to their imaginary friend. Now, I myself, I wonder if Pew accounts for the accelerating trend towards secularism in other countries and some of the spillover effect that might happen, because there's lots of other countries across the world where Christianity is no longer the dominant religion. And in fact, in a lot of Scandinavian countries, non-religion is the majority view. So to be honest, folks, I don't even think it's going to take that long. I hope to live to see the day I don't know that I will as a 27-year smoker who quit a month ago, but you know what? This is promising stuff. I want to see this better world for my kids. What do you guys have to say about this?
Well,
Cynthia, you have something to say?
Well, yes, I
Knock
know.
me over with a feather.
I know it is something that never happens, that I actually have something to say, but I wonder if it's possible, because I think this is one of the things that we can probably attribute this trend to. If we could, Crewmaster, can we please have that chart?
Yes. The
So
chart.
yes, this is the chart. And and one of the things that I took away from the article, I took this particular quote, that if you are wondering why religious switching is happening at all, well, hire a sociologist. But some explanations include a push for secularization, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ views held by conservative religious zealots, child sex abuse scandals, religious intermarriage, and the ability for religious doubters to find helpful resources and forums online for their new beliefs. And one of the things that, if you can actually see, if you look at the very bottom of that chart, the largest contributors to the irreligious are the Gen Zers. These are the young people that are our futures. These are going to be people who are going to be in the lawmaker chairs. They're going to be in the decision-making chairs. And this is the group that's actually becoming more and more religiously unaffiliated. I mean, if you even look at how it's compared to like 22% that is like at least Protestant, but over 31% of them are not actually a participant in any type of religion. That is promising, and I think that that's one of the reasons why we're actually seeing this particular trend. I mean, if you look at the silent generation and the boomers, I mean, these are groups that are dying out, right? And these are also
Right.
And they're also like the overwhelming voices that we are seeing in the body politic right now, that's like pushing really, really, really shitty laws when it comes to anti-women, anti-LGBTQ, anti-minority, and also the old guards are the ones that we have, issues with, especially when it came to like, child abuse, child sex abuse scandals, like the I believe the Southern Baptist Convention recently had one. Of course, we talked ad nauseum about the Catholic Church, right? So but like people who happen to be more religiously affiliated rather, were older and part of these particular demographics. But the Gen Zers are coming up and they're like, nah, we good. So but I agree with you. I don't necessarily think it's going to be until 2017. I think that we're probably going to get there a little bit quicker. And I believe that one of the reasons why we're even seeing like this rise of Christian nationalism is because they see it too. Even like Christian nationalists themselves are a small group. They're a minority group, but they are in key positions and have like key ears of people who want to push that particular agenda. But I really believe that it's overarchingly dangerous and also harmful, is because they know that the more of America is becoming non-religious. So our lives are in your hands, young people. Help us. But I think that, Josh, I think you have something to say about it too.
Yeah, Josh. Stop chasing those kids off your lawn, Josh. Jeez.
I'm the youngest one here. I'm going to hang out on your lawn now. I would like to share as much optimism. I do think like the younger generations, I'm trying my best not to throw the younger generations under the bus like seems to be happening with the older generations. I don't agree with whatever music or TV shows they like, but politically aligned, the younger generation does seem to be going well. Even like religiously aligned, the younger generation does seem to be doing much better than the older generation. So like while some of their intricacies annoy me. As people, they seem to be better people. But my problem is, I'm wondering if this survey has taken into account how hard Christian nationalism is pushing to disregard the separation of church and state right now, because they have been.
Oh yeah,
they have been doing away with laws. They're not even trying to hide that they don't care about church and state anymore, because they're just putting their own agendas out there. And I worry like we're going to eventually see like intelligent design and more schools, because they're going to push that through for some reason. They're going to find a reason to justify that, and their more propaganda can slowly get into like we're seeing signs in schools right now where you can have like God in doorways, or like God's great, or whatever the stupid signs are saying.
In God we trust.
Yeah, that too.
In God we trust.
Yeah,
in Texas.
So they're trying to get a hold of these young minds, and I worry because of their base votes. They are not the majority, but they are dedicated. I don't think you can find. I'd be very surprised to find a Christian nationalist that does not vote. While I have known many apathetic atheists that don't do that. So like while they're in power, they're going to be able to throw the propaganda wherever they can get. I think I'm maybe the only person in the notes, besides maybe Cindy can contribute to this also, that's thought that the 2070 might be a little optimistic with who we have in power. I do hope, and I am optimistic that eventually we can come to being a secular nation majority. But the way this government's going, the way it's disregarding the Constitution and all that kind of stuff to put their propaganda in charge, I worry about the youth. Gen Z is fine, but what comes after Gen Z might be getting radicalized all on its own.
Cindy, what did you have to
add? Cynthia wanted to say something before I go.
I was gonna go after you, but I just wanted to say that this is one of the reasons why I think that we are seeing a push specifically politically to reach out to young people, because of as you mentioned, Josh, these are a dedicated group. The Christian nationalists are dedicated. They are resolute when it comes to actually pushing forth their agenda, right? And so but the only way that we can actually have any type of way to combat them is we need people on the other side who have who sees how dangerous this agenda is and actually participate in the political process. And I think that we're starting. I believe that I even saw a story about how you are starting to see more millennials and Gen Zers that are actually putting their hat in the ring to actually run for office. So I'm hopeful for that only because of empiricism. Like I understand, like we do have an issue specifically with Christian nationalism, and it's a big issue, right? But I'm more of the before 2070, because they will eventually die out, and we do have young people who are trying to put their hat in the ring in order to make a change.
But
and again, I'm not saying. But go ahead, Cindy.
Yes. Yeah. What's Cindy have to say from across the pond? I'm curious.
Yeah. Initially, when I read the article, I thought that 2070 was optimistic, But I'm still on the fence, because the more I think about it, the more I have two sides on this issue. There is always a large delay between what the population wants and what the political system implements, because people who are in office, usually in democracies, they are much older. So they the time that what the people want and they got into office and then they get to implement those laws, it's all usually 20 30 years. But right now we have the Christofascist movement, we have the QAnon movement, and we have the Trumpism, and all that is mixing into one big movement that's trying to take power as much as possible. And I think that's the reason why I'm pessimistic, is because I think they will succeed. I think they will take a lot of power, maybe not all of it, maybe not turn the country into a theocracy, but they will take some power, and it will take some time to remove those people.
Of course. Yeah, and obviously I think Christianity is going to survive. It's going to weather this storm, but it's going to change. And like it always has with all social change over the last 500,000 years, it's going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the new zeitgeist of our evolving moral landscape. It's just that the battle is going to be whether it's going to be forced to adapt before or after this Christian nationalist movement manages to codify all this stuff. Now, I realize with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we're kind of looking more towards the after, but the potential for drastic change and the potential for this to spectacularly backfire on these people when women, when people in their 30s and 40s are forced to or impelled to actually vote and get out there and protest. Like I have been shocked that I haven't seen more riots over this Roe v. Wade thing. And I know a lot of folks being on the spectrum myself that have said if Obergefell falls, we will fucking riot. And I hope that happens. And I hope this is I hope this is a chance for all of those of us who aren't in power to unify and push back against this fucking bullshit, because we can't let this stand. And I don't think it's gonna stand. I have more faith in the United States than the two Americans on this panel do. So I don't think this is gonna stand, and I don't think it's gonna take till 2070. It's gonna be an ugly next 10, 20, maybe even 30 years. But I believe in you guys. I do not believe that the American experiment has failed, but I will throw I know, Cynthia, but I will throw it around for some final thoughts before we wrap up the show. I'm not going to let Cynthia go first because we've only got a few minutes left. So I'm going to throw it to Josh for a quick wrap up.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it down after Nate's thing. I worry about the death throes of Christianity because I absolutely do believe we are on track, but I do think it's going to be a dirty, ugly track to getting Christianity out of the majority in America. And I do believe they're going to start indoctrinating the youth. I don't think we can discount that. And it's going to be ugly. I do think that overall, eventually, because one of the things that started to get atheism big was the internet, and it started to restrict where they could put their propaganda because of like, logic is out there for people to find. But now they're starting to figure out technology a little bit better. They're finding new ways to manipulate the situation. I do think it's going to get dirty. I do think progress moves slow, especially it seems like it moves slow in the right direction because they're able to throw whatever the hell they want at us right now. And a lot of it's terrible. And a lot of that's like, it's galvanizing people right now to go up against unjust, but I know so many people that are against this Christian nationalist laws that are coming out, and they're up in arms right now, but I worry that they're not going to stay up in arms. And like, I know a lot of the people in charge of this, they're trying to keep it quiet, like about the Roe v. Wade thing. They're trying to keep it quiet on their news so that their people, because people on both sides are angry about that, so that that's not the main issue. They're trying to find other issues to distract so that they can eventually get away with all the other things that they want to do. They seem blunt and sometimes even kind of dumb, but it's a lot of it's strategy to like distract us from where their goals are. So I don't think the American experiment has failed, but I do think there's going to be a lot of scribbling along the way.
Okay, well, I have an opinion on that, but Cindy, would either of you like to weigh in before we wrap it up?
Cindy.
No, I agree with what Josh said mostly, but yeah, it's going to be a big fight. I hope it will stay. I mean, not literal fight, I don't want to see the United States fight each other. I heard yesterday a former general saying that in his book, the US was 85% close to a civil war. And those kind of thoughts kind of scare me. I have a lot
It's
of
scary.
friends over there, and I'm yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. No, I'm scared too, and I'm even more scared because I have a child, so I get scared for him about especially like the things that I see. But I just wanted to wrap up my final thought with something that Nick Fish said, who is the current president of the American Atheists. He said that this report confirms what we've long been saying. The American people are realizing that religion isn't necessary to lead a moral, compassionate, and ethical life, and the hypocrisy, scandals, extremism, bigotry, and lies of too many religious leaders and their denominations are only accelerating this trend. It's our obligation as atheist leaders to be responsive to the needs of this rapidly growing demographic and to create sort of a welcoming local community. No, we want a welcoming community that fully meets the needs of the newly non-religious.
Oh, Nick Fish just swam his way into my soul, and I have to say I don't agree with some of what Josh said, because I don't think they can afford to hide it anymore. I don't think they're even trying anymore. They know that they're in power, and they are the gloves are off. If you look at even pieces of the legislation that we regularly cover on the nonprofits, you can see that they don't give a shit whether popular opinion supports their movement or not. They're just gonna try to push it through, and they're gonna try to get it passed while they're in power. So I don't think they're even trying to hide it anymore. But Josh, I will give you the final word before we go into wrap up.
I'm just going to say they've been trying to quiet Lindsey Graham because he mentioned too early for them that they wanted to codify it against the whole country to get abortion banned across the whole country. So they are trying to hide it. Not everybody's following their plan, but they are trying to hide their plan.
They were trying to hide it.
Yeah.
I just were trying to hide it.
Can I just say this? This should make people vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but it should make people vote. That's all I got to say.
It should certainly make people want to get involved with the with the process, and even get involved with your local politics. Like, that can make a huge difference as well, right? Like, you don't have to. It doesn't matter really. I mean, it does matter, but it's not so much about the Congress people or the senators, but it's also about the people that run your city, because that's where change really takes effect and sort of starts. So. I have faith in you, America. I don't think you are a lost cause. I think it's like we've been saying. I think it's going to be an ugly 20 or 30 years, but I think y'all are going to pull through, and you're going to join, progressive, superior countries like Belgium and Canada and most of the European countries, and hopefully you'll catch up, and maybe we'll learn something from your film industry and make a decent movie before 2070. You never know. It could happen. All right. But before we go out, folks, if you've enjoyed this content, please do join our social media outlets. You can find nonprofit hosts on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord, and also on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. Also, if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself shopping at Amazon, support the Atheist Community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com. Select the Atheist Community of Austin as the beneficiary, and a few of Jeff Bezos' billions will come our way at no cost to yourself. use that link to help us out. We would really appreciate it. Also, we value your feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us in the comments. You can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. We also take article suggestions. So, we have a lot of stuff that we cover, but if there's something that we missed, we have taken audience suggestions before, and we would like to do it again in the future. So feel free, get involved. Tell us what's on your mind, and we will talk about it. Also, visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org. Latest on what's been happening. We want to kind of turn that site into a hub. We're going to post articles. We want you guys to get involved and start talking and chatting. Really trying to promote interaction at atheist-community.org. And you can contact us generally, all the ACA, not any specific show, TV at atheist-community.org. So, yes, talk to us. We, the community, need to affect change before the likes of the Bobarts and the McConnells and the rest of this odious trash manage to sink their dying fingers into the heart of the American experience. So please, let's form a community, get involved. You guys have any final thoughts on what we've talked about tonight?
No, we should just say goodbye. We want your final thoughts, everybody, so make sure you email us, please.
All right. Well, we want your final thoughts, people, so please get in touch. Email us, go on the Facebook, go on the Discord. But until next week, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.